بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وعملا وهدى وتقى ورشادا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم فقهنا في الدين وعلمنا التأويل. اللهم إنا نعوذ بك من علم لا ينفع، من قلب لا يخشع، من نفس لا تشبع، من دعوة لا يستجاب لها. نعوذ بك اللهم من هؤلاء الأربعة. أما بعد، فحياكم الله جميعا في الدرس الثالث عشر من دروس شرح تهذيب بناء الأفعال. A quick recap of what we have done so far, very quickly, inshallah. We learned what the science of Sarf is. We learned al-Mizan al-Sarfi. We learned how you're supposed to express the wazn of any isim fi'l or anything that has a root. How you're supposed to express its wazn in al-Mizan by using al-Mizan al-Sarfi. We learned the different taqsimat of fi'l. We said that the fi'l can be ماضي مضارع أمر. We said that the fi'l can be مبني للمعلوم ومبني للمجهول. We said that the fi'l can be متعدي or لازم, transitive or intransitive. We said that the fi'l can be صحيح or معتل, and صحيح is of a number of types, مهموز, مضاعف, and سالم. And معتل is مثال, أجوف, ناقص, لفيف, مقرون, مفروق. And then we also said that the fi'l can be مجرد or مزيد فيه. As for مجرد, if it is ثلاثي مجرد, طبعا مجرد means that has no additional letters in the ماضي for third person singular male, like نصر, فتح, ضرب. And this had 6 families: نصر ينصر, فتح يفتح, ضرب يضرب, علم يعلم, حسب يحسب, and حسن يحسن. As for رباعي مجرد, it only had 1 family, دحرج. And then for the ثلاثي مزيد فيه and the رباعي مزيد, we have a number of families which we'll inshallah learn later on. Then we learned some قواعد related to صرف and related to إعلال, the حروف علة, how if a فعل has a حرف علة, how it behaves. We learned some قواعد with regards to the pertaining to the 6 families of ثلاثي مجرد, how if the ماضي is on the wazn of فاعل, it can never have a مضارع on the wazn of يفعل, etc. And then finally we started with the book, and we went into details about the we read the muqaddimah first, and then we went into details about the first 3 families, the families that belong to fa'ala. Now as for the families that belong to fa'ala, which are namely أبواب فعل, نصر, and ضرب, and فتح. We alhamdulillah discussed that they are mostly مضارع, استغفر, they are mostly متعدي, they are mostly متعدي, and seldom do the families of فعل have a لازم that belongs to this family. So mostly فعل are مضارع, استغفر الله, متعدي again. طيب, mostly the families that or the أفعال that belongs to these 3 families of فعل, they are متعدي, seldom do they occur as لازم. We also mentioned what else did we mention? نعم, we mentioned some examples of verbs that belong to these families. We mentioned some examples that were صحيح, having no حرف علة, and we mentioned some examples that were معتل, having a حرف علة. Once we were done with these 3 families and explained what they had, and the shart of the family of فتح, that it must have its second or third root letter, one of the حروف of حلق, what we were left with was the مشتقات. If you remember, in the last dars before we started the book, we had talked about al-mushtaqat, derivatives, asma, nouns that are derived from these af'al. Now these these nouns that are derived from the af'al are very important. In particular, ismul fa'il, ismul maf'ul, and the masdar. In particular, ismul fa'il, ismul maf'ul, and the masdar. Who can remind me what is ismul fa'il? What is ismul fa'il? Ismul fa'il.
The doer of the fail.
أحسنت. The noun that denotes the doer of the fi'l, that refers to the doer of the fi'l. Now, for example, a person who has aided. Now, you want to refer to that person who has performed the fi'l of nasara. So, what will this person be called in Arabic? The one who has performed this fi'l of nasara yansuru.
ناصر.
Nasr. أحسنتم. And what is ismul maf'ul? What is ismul maf'ul? It is a noun, an ism that denotes or that refers to
The object.
the object, the maf'ul. Ahsant. So, for example, a person who was aided by someone else, who was helped, then he will be referred to as the one upon whom the fi'l of nasara applied. He'll be referred to as Mansur. Nasir, Mansur. Hamil, Mahmul. خافض مخفوض غافر مغفور. So مفعول. This inshallah we'll be learning today, but just asking you because some of you might have some prior knowledge of the awzan of ism al-fa'il and ism al-maf'ul. Now, in our speech, whenever or in any language that you speak, the ism al-fa'il and ism al-maf'ul are very used very often. Used very often, and something that is required all the time. How do you refer to the helper? You say Nasir, مثلا. How do you refer to the one who is helped? You cannot always use the fi'l. And you cannot just say الذي نصر, the one who was helped. No, you will have to use an ism, a noun that refers to him, that denotes the object. So this is very important. Okay, another one of the mushtaqat that is very important is the masdar. What is the masdar, ya ikhwan?
The verbal noun.
The verbal noun that refers to the action itself. I mean, it's not a verb, it refers to the action, the process of the fi'l, the fi'l, it's mahiyya, it refers to the action, its process itself. For example, we gave an example from English. We said that treated or treating, this is a verb. To treat, it's a verb, right? But the masdar is treatment. Treatment is the masdar, which refers to the process of treating. Likewise, we mentioned an example of مثلا graduation. To graduate, this is a verb, yeah? But the process is called graduation. Likewise, we have masadir in Arabic as well. But they have different awzan, they have different patterns. But what we all know, how important it is to use masadir in our language. We cannot just rely upon af'al and make the what is called as the infinitive noun, just add to and then mention the verb. To steal is not something that is good. Rather, we would say stealing is a bad habit or stealing is haram, مثلا. So here, stealing was a verbal noun that you used. So verbal nouns form a very important part of our speech. So it's very important to know ism al-fa'il, ism al-maf'ul, and the verbal nouns. Out of the mushtaqat, these three are the most important. As for masdar mimi, ism al-ala, ism al-zaman, ism al-makan, firstly, yes, they are also important, but they are not as important as ism al-fa'il, ism al-maf'ul, and the masdar. And secondly, they are not as often used. And thirdly, they are not specific to the families of fa'ala or fa'ila or fa'ula. Like they are more generic. Ismul ala. Ismul ala, a term, a noun that is used to refer to a tool that performs a particular function. مثلا طرق يطرق, to hammer. طرق يطرق, to hammer. The thing that hammers, or the tool that is used to hammer, is called mitraqa. Now mitraqa is on the wazn of mif'ala. Now the thing is, ya ikhwan, that here when we derive it on the wazn of mif'ala, this mif'ala isn't something that is specific to the family of taraqa yatruqu, which is nasara yansuru. That's why they are these the other derivatives, they are generic, they are general for all of the families, all of the 6 families. But when it comes to the ism al-fa'il or ism al-maf'ul or the masdar, they are specific to particular families. For example, nasara yansuru and daraba yadribu and fataha yaftahu, they might have particular masadir that are specific to their families. Whereas fa'ila yaf'alu, the families of fa'ila, like alima and hasiba, these families might have some different ism al-fa'il and ism al-maf'ul. So that's why these three mushtaqat mainly are specific to, are family specific. They are specific to particular families. So that's why these three mushtaqat, ya ikhwan, we will be discussing them and learning them along with the families. So once we read from the from the book about the families of fa'ala, nasara, daraba, fataha. Once we read about the families from the book, we move on to the mushtaqat. We move on to these three mushtaqat. Mushtaqat means derivatives. So we discussed what is the ism al-fa'il of the families that of fa'ala, what is the ism al-maf'ul of these families, and what is the masadir, or what are the masadir of these families. When it comes to the families of fa'ila, once we are done from the book with the families of fa'ila, which are namely alima and hasiba, then we will discuss what is the ism al-fa'il for these families, what is the ism al-maf'ul for these families, what are the masadir for these families, and likewise with the family of hasuna. So this is a very important part, and this is where you start, when your knowledge of sarf starts bearing the fruit. This is where sarf becomes enjoyable. This is where you start understanding and developing dhawq, and for Arabic language. This is where you will enjoy reading Arabic texts. This is where, inshallah, sarf will enable you to enjoy reading the Quran. When you deal with the masad, when you deal with the different awzan and their meanings. When you deal with the different awzan and their meanings. طيب. So mushtaqat fa'ala. طبعا, because this had a lot of stuff in Arabic. By this I mean like the examples. This part, the mushtaqat part, has a lot of examples. Because it has a lot of examples, it was not, or mostly it consists of examples. So it was not suitable to translate it in English. Examples are supposed to be discussed and mentioned in Arabic. So I did not translate these passages in English because these mostly consist of examples. There are a few lines here and there that require a bit of translation, else it's all about examples. طيب. So first of all, ya ikhwan, when it comes to the families of fa'ala, which are nasara yansuru, daraba yadribu, fataha yaftahu, their mushtaqat, we start with ismul fa'il. Ismul fa'il. Okay. What is the ismul fa'il, or how is the ismul fa'il of these families? And how do you refer, or what word do you use to refer to the doer for these af'al? To refer to the doer of the verbs that belong to these families. What is the pattern that you use to refer to the doer of the verbs that belong to these families? This is what we will be studying in Ismul Fa'il. Now here you will be learning two new words today, two new terms, meaning of which might be known to you, but what is meant in the context of Sarf, or in the context of Nahu and Sarf, Arabic grammar, what do these mean? This is important. There are two words here. There is the word al-qiyas, and there is another word as-sama'. Does anyone know what does al-qiyas and as-sama' refer to? What is the meaning of al-qiyas? What is the meaning of qiyas? نعم لحظة. The charts. قياس means to guess. No, assume. No, not assume actually. قياس is okay. You're getting it from. I get it. No. قياس is actually to measure something. قياس is to measure something, and which is why قياس in usul al-fiqh, or in fiqh, when we use the word قياس, we are actually measuring it or trying to fit it into an issue that is similar to it. That's why it's called qiyas, as if you are trying to fit this mas'ala into another one. So for example, let's say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prohibited us from consuming something that causes something that is an intoxicant, right? Like khamr, generally khamr. Now you come across a substance that is not khamr, but it's an intoxicant. So here you would be applying qiyas. Qiyas means you will be drawing an analogy between this new substance and and alcohol, and you will be saying, okay, let me just fit this into the text of alcohol. So as if I am fitting this or measuring this, and aqisu alayhi, I am measuring this substance with khamr. So I'm equating this substance with khamr. Why? Because of the reason for which khamr was prohibited by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So qiyas actually means to measure something, to measure. طيب. Here in this context, ya ikhwan, the meaning of qiyas, it literally means here yani measuring scale. You can say measuring scale or standard. What do we mean by measuring scale or standard? This means that the standard rule is the following. When we use the word qiyas, we are referring to the standard rule. The standard rule is that the ism al-fa'il of these families, fa'ala, of the families of fa'ala, namely nasara, daraba, and fataha, will be on the pattern of fa'il. This is the standard rule. Qiyas means the standard rule. Okay? For example, you don't need to have heard the Arabs or have read the Arabs use this pattern for a particular fi'l in order for you to be able to use it. This is the standard rule. Any fi'l that you come across and it is on the wazn of fa'ala, you can use fa'il for it. You can use fa'il, the pattern of fa'il for it. What do we mean by the pattern of fa'il? Inshallah, we'll apply it to a number of af'al, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. But this is the meaning of qiyas. Qiyas means this is the standard rule. When we say as-sama', when we use the word as-sama', as-sama' means that this is what has been heard from the Arabs. This is what has been heard from the Arabs, sama'. And it is not qiyas. In order for you to use this must be transmitted from the Arabs. And something that we call sama' or sama'i, this means that in order for you to use it, it must be transmitted from the Arabs. And if we call something qiyas or qiyasi, lahza, 1 second, let me tell. Now, so when we call something qiyasi or qiyas, it means that this is the standard rule, and this has been we have used the standard rule to derive this particular word. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And when we say something is sama'i or sama', it means that this has been transmitted from the Arabs. It's not the standard rule. This is in order to use this, we are depending on the transmission of this from the Arabs. So if we find the Arabs having used it in this way, we use it in that way. So this is qiyas. Now let me give you examples for this. Qiyas, the standard rule. We said that the standard rule to refer to the doer of a verb that belongs to the families of fa'ala is that the ism al-fa'il is on the wazn of fa'il. Fa'il means the first root letter will go in the place of fa and will have a fatha. Then we'll have an alif, and then we'll have the second root letter having a kasra, and then we will have lam, the third root letter at the end. Now, for example, we have af'al, different af'al that belong to the family of fa'ala. We have hamala. So the ism al-fa'il of hamala is hamil. The ism al-fa'il of nasara is nasir. The ism al-fa'il of khafada, yakhfidu is khafid. And likewise, qa'id, sa'iq, sa'ir, ba'i', da'in, ramin, mashin. Now I'll explain inshallah Why is there a hamza here, and why there is a kasratain here, and where is the third root letter? Inshallah, we'll explain each of these. But let me first give you some more examples of af'al that belong to the family of fa'ala, and you guys tell me what will be the ism al-fa'il according to the standard, according to the qiyas. طيب? Okay, let's start with, let's say, ضرب. What is the ism al-fa'il of ضرب? A person who is performing ضرب يضرب, what will he be called? What will a person, نعم ضارب, أحسنتم, ضرب يضرب فهو ضارب, he is a ضارب, ضرب يضرب ضربا فهو ضارب. Okay, what about the person who is opening a door, let's say, who is using the فعل or doing the فعل فتح يفتح فتحا, he will be called a فاتح. طيب, a person who is let's say writing something, كتب يكتب, he will be called a كاتب. أحسنتم. A person who is reading Quran, let's say, he will be called a قرأ يقرأ. The person who is doing قرأ يقرأ will be called a قارئ. طيب, a person who is let's say sitting, جلس يجلس, جالس. طيب, a person who is eating, he will be called أكل يأكل, he will be called آكل. A person who is let's say witnessing, لا, that's شهد يشهد, لا يشهدون, لا, that's شهد يشهد, لا ما يجي. لحظة. A person who is, let's say, نعم, he's doing قاعد يقعد, to sit, he will be called قاعد. طيب, عقل يعقل, a person who is يعني understanding something, عقل يعقل, عاقل. طيب, a person who is, let's say, overcoming another, غلب يغلب, he will be called a غالب. أحسنتم. A person who, or something that is going outside, or someone who is going outside, a person who is exiting, خرج يخرج فهو خارج. A person who is entering, دخل يدخل فهو داخل. A person who is, or let's say a person who is climbing, or who is going upwards, let's say صعد يصعد فهو صاعد. The sun, when it is rising, or something that is rising, طلع يطلع, or طلع يطلع فهو طلع يطلع طالع. طيب, the sun or anything that is setting, and غرب, يعني الشمس غربت تغرب فهي مثلا غارب. نعم, أحسنتم. طيب, okay, a person who is, let's say, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he gives us the rizq, he's providing us with rizq. رزق يرزق فهو رازق. طيب, let's say, نعم, a person who is لحظة. طيب, what else do we have? Let me think of something. Who is lying, كذب يكذب. A person who is lying will be called a كاذب. A person who is telling the truth, صدق يصدق فهو صادق. A person who is mentioning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, remembering him, ذكر يذكر فهو ذاكر. Okay, ممتاز. A person who is let's say, who is going somewhere, ذهب يذهب فهو ذاهب. أحسنتم. طيب, now this is clear, alhamdulillah, that fa'il is the qiyas, it's the standard pattern for the ism al-fa'il of verbs that belong to the families of fa'ala, for words that belong to the families of fa'ala, namely nasara, daraba, and fataha. So the standard pattern for referring to the fa'il of these verbs is فاعل فاعل فاعل. طيب. I'll explain now what happens if the fi'l is أجوف. What happens if the fi'l is أجوف, and what happens when the fi'l is ناقص. Now these examples, we haven't just mentioned them randomly, rather we have mentioned them in order for us to learn what happens when the fi'l is أجوف and what happens when the fi'l is ناقص. Now if the fi'l is مثال, let's say وعد يعد, so this is easy. What will be the fa'il of وعد يعد? وعد يعد, the one who promises. What will we call a person who is the one who promises? واعد. This is easy. وعد يعد واعد. مثلا also even if it is فاعلة يبس ييبس فهو يابس. يابس يعني dry. Likewise, even though it is فاعلة, but ورث يرث فهو وارث. وقف يقف, the person who stops or stands. وقف يقف. What is a person who stops? وقف يقف. What is he called? واقف. نعم. So this means that if the fi'l is a مثال meaning the first root letter is one of the حروف of علة. If it is a مثال, it doesn't cause any problems. But the trouble comes when the fi'l is أجوف, يعني having the middle root letter, a حرف علة, or when it is ناقص. Now, if the middle root letter is a حرف علة, that is, the fi'l is أجوف, then when it comes to the اسم الفاعل, you will not retain the ya or the waw. Rather, you will convert the ya or the waw into a hamza. And hence, if the fi'l is مثلا قاد يقود. لحظة. نعم. قاد يقود, to drive or lead. قاد يقود. So a person who is performing the fi'l of قاد يقود, to drive or to lead, will be called a قاvid ولا قائد. Will he be called a قاvid or will he be called a قائد?
Supposed to be قاود.
It was supposed to be قاود. صحيح? But because the rule says that if the fi'l was أجوف, the waw or the ya in ism al-fa'il, they will be converted into a hamza. Hence, the correct ism al-fa'il for قاد يقود is not قاود, rather it is قائد. Is that clear, inshallah? What happened here? The waw or the ya in qawid were converted into a hamza. The waw or the ya in qawid, طبعا in qawid we only have a vowel, so it was converted into a hamza. Now let me give you an example of a fi'l that has a ya in it. Sara yasiru. This is an ajwaf fi'l, ajwaf ya'i. An ajwaf fi'l that has a ya in the middle. So what is the ism al-fa'il of Sara yasiru? ساير ولا سائر؟ سائر with a hamza. أحسنتم. سائر. طيب. Here we also have mentioned the examples of ساق يسوق. ساق يسوق also means it's similar to قاد يقود. ساق يسوق, to drive or to drag. طيب. ساق يسوق فهو ساوق or سائق. سائق. أحسنتم. سائق. طيب. We have mentioned another one here. باع يبيع. باع يبيع. أجوف يائي. Has the middle letter as a ya. أجوف يائي. باع يبيع. فهو بايع ولا بائع؟ طبعا ولا is أو in slang. Sorry. يعني بايع أو بائع. It's بائع with a hamza. بائع. أحسنتم. طيب. عاد يعود. عاد يعود, to return. Which is why Eid is called Eid, because it returns, it repeats. عاد يعود. فهو, what will we call the اسم الفاعل of or the فاعل of عاد يعود? عاد يعود. Is he عاود أو عائد؟
عائد.
عائد. أحسنتم. عائد. طيب. عاد يعوذ, يعني أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. عاد, to seek refuge in someone or something. عاد يعوذ. فهو, he is called, what is he called يا إخوان؟
عائد.
عائذ. أحسنتم. طيب. حال يحول, عاد يعود. طيب, let's just say خلاص, كان يكون. نعم, كان يكون. what is اسم الفاعل of كان يكون؟ كاون أو كائن؟ هاي يا إخوان, كائن. أحسنتم, كائن. طيب. مال يميل. مال يميل. what is اسم الفاعل of مال يميل؟ اسم الفاعل of مال يميل.
مائل.
مائل. أحسنتم. That's it. So this is inshallah clear بإذن الله. This part is clear. Why these four examples have been mentioned, and what happens with the أجوف, if the فعل is أجوف in the اسم الفاعل, we do not retain the واو or the ya, rather we replace them with a hamza. We replace them with a hamza. We convert them into a hamza. So this is inshallah clear بإذن الله يا إخوان.
بإذن الله.
طيب, خلاص, ممتاز. Now, let us discuss داع, رام, and ماشٍ. What went here? What went on here? طيب. These are examples that we have mentioned for أفعال that were ناقص. For أفعال that were ناقص. What is a فعل ناقص يا إخوان? What is a فعل ناقص?
When the huruf illa is at the end.
At the end, the third root letter is a حرف علة. When the third root letter is a حرف علة, which have ناقص, which have واو يا همزة. لا, which with حرف علة. نعم, but the question is, where is the حرف علة? The حرف علة is in the third place, in the place of the third root letter. Now what goes on here? مثلا, you had دعا يدعو. دعا, لحظة, دعا يدعو. Now in دعا يدعو, according to the rule, it should have been داعب. صحيح؟ فاعل يعني داعب. صح ولا ما صح؟ It should have been داعب. طيب. Now داعب, we know that واو لحظة. Now we know that the kasra does not suit the واو, and the dhamma does not suit the ya. صحيح? So whenever a ya is preceded by a dhamma, either the ya is converted into a waw, or the dhamma is done away with and it is made into a kasra. But we cannot have a ya preceded by a dhamma or a waw preceded by a kasra, because these two don't really, they are not compatible. They can't manage it with each other. طيب. So what happened here, ikhwan, was because in da'ivun, the ain had a kasra. We were forced to, for the ism al-fa'il, we were forced to convert the waw into a ya. Okay? So it became da'iyun. That's why we call the people who do the work of da'wah Da'wah, what is da'wah? Da'a yad'u. Da'a ila al-Islam. He called towards Islam. Da'a ila al-Islam yad'u ila al-Islam. He calls towards Islam. What is he called? Is he called a da'iv or is he called a da'i? Da'i. It's not called a da'iv. So you might think why it was da'a yad'u. So he should have been called a da'ivun. But da'iv is not possible because the waw does not the kasra does not suit the waw. So we have to convert the waw into a ya. Now we have da'iyun. طيب da'iyun. If we add an al to da'i, it's absolutely fine. You will just simply say ad-da'i. طيب ad-da'i. This is easy. But the problem occurs when you have no al and the ism is a nakira. The ism is a nakira. Now when an ism is a nakira, what happens at the end of that ism? Does it have a tanween or does it not have a tanween? When the ism is a nakira, does it have a tanween or does it not have a tanween?
It has a tanween.
It has a tanween. ممتاز. طيب. Thing is, just like قلم, باب, طاولة, مثلا جوال, كتاب, إلى آخر ذلك. Now, what tanween do we have? For example, in Rafa' we have ضمتين. طيب. Or just let's just say ضمة because the tanween is the noon sound. We have a ضمة with a tanween. داعي. Now, can the ya, according to what we have learned in Nahu, can the ya have a ضمة or a kasra? Or is it replaced by a sukoon or turned into a sukoon because of some illah? Can the ya or a waw have a dhamma or a kasra, or it must be replaced by a sukoon because of some illah? Because of thiqal, it must be replaced by a sukoon. This haraka must be removed. This haraka must be removed. Now, لحظة, let me just make things a bit larger here. لحظة. Now, da'iyun, we have thiqal. Now, let's just write da'iyun, not the way we write it with the tanween. Let's just write tanween as a noon, so that it becomes clear what goes on here. Now, da'iyun looked something like this. If we write it with like in terms of the sound it makes, not how it is supposed to be written in Arabic. We're writing it in a way, the way it makes the sound. So it makes the sound of da'iyun. So tanween, we're writing the tanween as a noon sakin, because tanween is a noon sakin in reality, but the thing is that it's just written as a double dhamma or a double fatha or double kasra. It's not written as a noon, but in reality it is a noon sakin because that's the sound it makes. Even in the books of tajweed, you will find them defining the tanween as نون ساكنة تلحق آخر الكلمة. It's a noon sakin that comes at the end of the words. طيب, داعي. Now we said that the ya cannot have a dhamma, neither can the waw have a dhamma, because of thiqal, because it's burdensome, it is heavy. So we have to replace it with a sukoon. So now we have da'in. What happens when two sakin letters meet with each other? عندما يلتقي الساكنان التقاء الساكنين. You must have heard of التقاء الساكنين. What happens then?
It's removed one.
You have to remove one. Either you remove the noon or you remove the ya. طيب. Now noon has come for a purpose. The noon has come here for a purpose, and that is to express that the word is a nakira. And especially when you are in the middle of your speech, you're not stopping at that word, then you have to express the tanween. Like you cannot stop in the middle of the speech. Just like when you read the Quran, يعني in Surah An-Naba or مثلا in Surah Al-Fajr وَجَاءَ رَبُّكَ وَالْمَلَكُ صَفًّا صَفًّا. Now at the end of the speech, when you're stopping, you don't have to read the tanween. But in the middle, the first صَفًّا, you have to do the tanween. You cannot say وَجَاءَ رَبُّكَ وَالْمَلَكُ صَفًّا صَفًّا. ما يجي. You have to read it with the tanween in the middle of the speech. So especially in the middle of the speech, you cannot do away with the tanween. You have to read the tanween. You have to read or pronounce the tanween. This, and it comes for a specific purpose. So it is very important. Hence, we are left with no option but to omit and do away with the ya sakin. Now what are we left with? The in. We're left with da'in. And this is how we have the ism al-fa'il of da'a yad'u as, we have the ism al-fa'il of da'a yad'u as da'in. Da'in. And the same goes, ya ikhwan, for rama yarmi and masha yamshi, which the other examples that we have mentioned here are rama yarmi. So what is the ism al-fa'il of rama yarmi? Ramiyun am ramin. I know it's confusing. Sorry. Lahza. See, the whole process, you don't have to understand it right now. What happened, what didn't happen. Right now, what is required of you, I just told you the process so that if you ever wonder what went on, you would know. But right now, what is more important is that you understand that if a fi'l is naqis, that is the last letter, the last root letter is a harf illah, then the ism al-fa'il that will be derived from that fi'l, it will be void of the third root letter. And we will end that fi'l with the second root letter and a tanween having a kasra. That's what I want. Like I just want you to practice rama yarmi fahuwa ramin. طيب masha yamshi fahuwa mashin. طيب جرى يجري فهو جرى يجري. What is the اسم الفاعل of جرى يجري? جار. أحسنتم. جار. لحظة. طيب جرى يجري فهو جار. بدأ يبدو فهو to appear, to become apparent. بدأ يبدو فهو باد. أحسنتم. فهو باد. طيب كذلك عندنا مثلا كوى يكوي. كوى يكوي. That is to iron or cauterize. كوى يكوي فهو كاوين. أحسنتم. كوى يكوي فهو كاوين. أحسنت. الله يفتح عليك. What else do we have? جرى مشى بدا يبدو دعا يدعو جلى يجلي. طيب ولولا أن كتب الله عليهم الجلاء جلاء يجلي. طيب رجا يرجو. نعم رجا يرجو to have hope. نعم you have to get rid of the حرف علة at the end and end it with a كسرتين. رجا يرجو فهو راج. The one who hopes is a راج. What else do we have? طيب عمي يعمل لا ما يجي. رجا يرجو. نعم. Anyone has any other examples يا إخوان?
What about رأى?
رأى. نعم ممتاز. رأى يرى فهو فهو راء. أحسنتم. راء. أحسنتم. الله يفتح عليكم. رأى يرى فهو راء وهكذا. طيب this is how it is. Now inshallah this is also بإذن الله تعالى clear why we had داعٍ رامٍ and ماشٍ. Okay, because it was a fi'l ناقص from which it was derived. The ism al-fa'il was derived. So the khulasa is that the ism al-fa'il of verbs that belong to the families of fa'ala, namely nasara, daraba and fataha, they will be on the pattern of fa'il. And there are a couple of fine details when it comes to the fa'il, that if the fi'l that they were derived from was a fi'l ajwaf, then the middle root letter, which was either a waw or a ya, will be converted into a hamza, like in sa'ir, sa'iq, qa'id, ba'i'. And if the fi'l was naqis, we will be doing away with the last root letter, and we will mostly have it end with a kasratain. Even if it is marfu', we will end it with a kasratain. And which is why you would find in the Quran that the sorcerers who competed with Musa alayhi salam, when they had accepted Islam, they addressed Fir'aun and they said, فَقْضِ مَا أَنْتَ قَاضٍ فَقْضِ مَا أَنْتَ قَاضٍ إِنَّمَا تَقْضِي هَذِهِ الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا, that decide or issue a decree, whatever you are going to do. فَقْضِ مَا أَنْتَ قَاضٍ. So here the ism al-fa'il was derived from the fi'l قضى يقضي. قضى يقضي فهو قاضٍ. Now قاضٍ was actually مرفوع. فَقْضِ مَا أَنْتَ قَاضٍ. أنت مبتدا مرفوع علامة رفع طبعا this is ضمير منفصل مبني على الفتح في محل رفع مبتدا. And قاضٍ يا إخوان here is the خبر, and خبر is always مرفوع. So قاضٍ was خبر مرفوع. But the thing is that it has kasratain. Why it has kasratain? Because of the long process that we explained to you a while ago, that we have to do away with first of all, we can the ya at the end of qadi, it couldn't have a dhamma, and we had to put the tanween because it was a nakirah. So what happened is that because it couldn't have a dhamma, we had two sakin letters. When we had two sakin letters, we had to do away with the ya, and what we were left with was the sound of tanween with a dad that has a kasra. So فَقْضِ مَا أَنْتَ قَاضٍ. What will we say in its i'rab? What will we say in its i'rab? We will say the following in its i'rab. قَاضٍ. We will say, for those who want to write this down, they can write this down. For those who see this as not that important, that's fine. قَاضٍ خبر مرفوع. And this is the key part. وعلامة رفعه الضمة المقدرة على الياء المحذوفة لالتقاء الساكنين. الضمة المقدرة على الياء المحذوفة لالتقاء الساكنين. الضمة المقدرة على الياء المحذوفة لالتقاء الساكنين. The alama of رفع here يا إخوان was the dhamma. But where is that dhamma? That dhamma went away with that ya that we deleted, with that ya that we got rid of. This dhamma that was on the ya, that was the alama of rafa. But now we don't have that ya anymore. So we don't have a dhamma that was the alama of rafa. So we say that it is an imaginary dhamma that was on the deleted ya. And that ya was deleted because we were having 2 seconds meet each other. That's why الالتقاء الساكنين. Hope this is clear inshallah so far. فاعل and hamza and da', sa'ir and da'id, hamil, qa'id and da'id. Inshallah this is clear. We can move on to ism al-maf'ul يا إخوان.
Sheikh, one question.
تفضل يا أخي.
Rama Yarmi, originally it's supposed to be Ramiyun. صح؟
نعم صحيح.
In the process. طيب جزاك
Then the whole process. نعم.
طيب.
Okay, so this is the standard rule that the ism al-fa'il of any fi'l that belongs to the family of fa'ala, families of fa'ala, which are nasara, daraba, fataha, it will be on the pattern of fa'il. It will be on the pattern of fa'il. Sometimes, okay, let me just, before I say sometimes, let me ask you. When we say وَقَدْ يَأْتِي, what is the meaning of قَدْ يَأْتِي? What is the meaning of قَدْ يَأْتِي? You guys tell me this time around. قَدْ يَأْتِي. يَأْتِي means to come. To come. Now what is what does qad do here? What is the function of qad here? We did this sometimes. قد يأتي قد يكون قد means any sometimes, maybe, perhaps. Okay, so وقد يأتي, and sometimes it can be on some other pattern for some reason. لمناسبة ما, for some reason, for some resemblance, or for some reason that could be that its resemblance with an opposite word, or its synonymousness with another word. مثلا, let me just tell you, this is not an important piece of information that I'm telling you right now. This is just to make it clear that sometimes the ism al-fa'il can be on another pattern, but for that you have to depend on the Arabic texts. For that you have to depend on a sama'. So you will have to know a lot of Arabic texts in order to know when do the Arabs use some other pattern to refer to al-fa'il. So for example, something that has lightened, that has become lighter now, it's called khafif. Khaffa yakhiffu, a thing that becomes light, it's called khafif. The asal is that it should have been called khafun. We forgot to mention examples of ism al-fa'il from the muda'af. For example, madda yamuddu, we will not say it's madid, we will say maddun. ضل يضل فهو ضال. عد يعد فهو عاد. Yeah, this is something that we forgot to mention here. The muda'af, ya ikhwan. You know what is the fi'l that is muda'af? What is the fi'l that is muda'af? Or what is the muda'af? That has a second and third root letter the same. For example, madda yamuddu, madda and kabba and sabba, right? طيب. So the ism al-fa'il, according to the rule, it should have been madid, right? And kabib and sabib, right? But we have learned previously that if the two like letters are both having a haraka, it is a must to observe idgham. It's a must to merge the first one into the second one, and hence we will be saying maddun and kabun, kabun and sabun, and which is why in Surah Al-Fatiha, what do we have? We have غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين, or do we have ولا الضاللين? We have ولا الضالين. ضالين is ضل يضل. It was actually ضالل, ضاللun. This is how it was, ضاللun. But because both were having a haraka, the first lam had to be merged into the other one. So this happens with the fi'l muda'af. ضال ضل يضل فهو ضال. A person who is misguided is called ضال. So with خف يخف, like khafif, we have khafif, whereas it should have been khafifun. Khafifun, that was originally khafifun, and which then became khafun. This is how it should have been. But we have it khafif. Now why do we have it khafif? This is how we found the Arabs use it. Why did the Arabs use khafif instead of khafun? Just like dalun and maddun? Because the opposite of khafif was also on the wazn of fa'il. What is the opposite of khafif? What is the opposite of khafif?
Thaqil.
Thaqil, fa'il. So they said, okay, because it has a similar job, that is to describe the weight, then let us just make it on the same pattern as thaqil. So thaqil and khafif. Okay, tayyib, tayyib, taba yatibu, taba yatibu. Something that has become pure and clean and tasty مثلا, then we'll say طاب يطيب. Now طاب يطيب, what according to the rule, what should have its اسم الفاعل been? طاب يطيب, what should its اسم الفاعل be according to the rule? فاعل. The اسم الفاعل of طاب يطيب should have been just like سار يسير فهو سائر, ساق يسوق فهو سائق, باع يبيع فهو بايع. It should have been طائب, right? طائب, just like تاب يتوب فهو تائب. So we should have had طاب يطيب فهو طائب, but we don't have it as طائب. Rather we have it as طيب. Now why طيب? They say the opposite of طيب, of طائب or طاب يطيب, يعني something that is طيب, the opposite of it is خبيث, evil or dirty or يعني evil, dirty or يعني impure. طيب? So طاب, they said the opposite of this is خبيث, and because طاب is also describing the pure, it's performing a similar function that is describing whether something is pure or impure. So they said, okay, let's just have it on the wazn of فيعل, طيب طيب. Okay, and they likewise ضاق يضيق, ضاق يضيق. Now what is ضاق يضيق يا إخوان? ضاق يضيق means when something becomes narrow, something becomes narrow. طيب, narrow, or you can also say يعني it's if it is يعني figuratively used, it refers to depression مثلا. طيب, depression, or you can say unrest. Yeah. So ضاق يضيق, according to the rule, what should have its اسم الفاعل been? ها يا شباب, ضاق يضيق, طاب يطيق, ضائق, it should have been ضائق, right? But we have it as something that is tightened, that has become confined, that has narrowed, that has become limited, or a person who has his heart is feeling depressed or يعني anxious, we will say, we call him ضيق, يعني ضيق صدره, his heart is very, it's in the state of unrest and it's depressed, it's tightened, as if it's tightened. We'll not call it ضائق, we'll say ضيق, we will say ضيق. And I put the harakat here in the wrong place. This shadda and kasra should have been on the ya. So we don't say ضائق, we say ضيق, we say ضيق. Okay, why do we say ضيق? Because what is the opposite of ضيق? وسيع مثلا, so we can say ضيق and وسيع, so we should have that's why we have ضيق مثلا. Okay, now there is one فائدة, additional فائدة to ضائق and ضيق. In the Quran, at the beginning of Surah al-A'raf, Surah al-A'raf, I guess, نعم, كتاب أنزل إليك فلا يكن في ذلك حرج. لا ليس سورة الأعراف, ليس سورة الأعراف, but in which surah is it? in سورة هود. نعم, سورة هود. يقول الله عز وجل فلعلك تارك بعض ما يوحى إليك وضائق به صدرك. Allah used the ism for ism al-fa'il. Allah did not use ضيق, but he used ضائق. Now Allah said in Surah Hud, the ayah number is 12. In ayah 12, Allah says to Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam that perhaps you would wish to give up and leave out some of what has been revealed to you, and you would be in a state of distress because of it. Your heart and your chest is tightened and you feel distressed because of some of that is revealed to you. And subhanallah, this is the state of many of us who are influenced or who become intimidated by foreign thoughts, by thoughts that don't belong to, that are foreign to Islamic thought. So that's why we get intimidated by liberals, we get intimidated by people who are coming from different backgrounds, who or thoughts or ideologies. When we get intimidated by them, what happens is that we tend to, or we wish to leave some of that has been revealed in the Quran and Sunnah, and we become distressed because of it. So this is the state that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is describing for his Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then he comforts him and he says, إِنَّمَا أَنْتَ نَذِيرٌ. إِنَّمَا أَنْتَ نَذِيرٌ. You are just a warner. Remember, it's not up to you to manage their wants, their needs, or what they want from you, or what they perceive as right and wrong. It's not up to you to adjust according to it. The truth has been revealed to you. You are just a warner. Your job is to accept what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals to you and warn in the light of what Allah has revealed to you in the Quran and Sunnah. Do not become distressed because what has been revealed to you does not conform with what they want from you. Do not become distressed by this. Rather, stay steadfast upon the Quran and Sunnah and warn them against what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or warn them against going or violating the hudud and the boundaries of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is a beautiful ayah, and this is it's very relevant to us as well. That do not become distressed because many of the kuffar think that some of the rules of Sharia are barbaric, or some go against the women's rights, or some go against مثلا they are considered as oppression, etc. Don't become distressed by what they judge your religion to be as. Rather, you accept it because it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and warn them. That's it. Your job is to warn them. It's not to make sure that they are convinced. لا. فيقول الله عز وجل هنا, he says وضائق به صدرك. He did not use ضيق, rather he used ضائق. Now what is the secret behind this in ayah 12 of Surah Hud? وضائق به صدرك. The secret behind this, ya ikhwan, is that the fa'il, the wazn fa'il, this pattern fa'il, is it's used to refer to something that is a one-off, that is an occurrence, that is a one-off occurrence. It is not something that is continuous, that is something that becomes a permanent attribute. You know that hasuna yahsunu, how hasuna yahsunu is used for something that becomes a permanent attribute. So ismul fa'il, or the wazn, the pattern fa'il, is used to refer to one-off occurrences and not to something that has become a permanent feature or a long-term characteristic or feature of something. Rather, it is only used to refer to one-off occurrences. And that is why ضَائِقٌ بِهِ صَدْرُكَ, here Allah used ضَائِقٌ, because this distress that the Prophet ﷺ was experiencing, this was temporary. And it doesn't mean that he has become distressed permanently. But when we say, for example, the way that you're walking on becomes ضيق from here, it has يضيق من هنا. This actually means that this way from this place, مثلا if you're walking on a pathway, and a pathway becomes لحظة, it narrows and tightens from the front, مثلا. Okay, so you will say then the pathway is ضيق من هنا. It's here, it's ضيق. Now because it is permanently ضيق here, it's not ضائق, it's not ضيق for a little while, it's not a one-off occurrence, rather it's permanently ضيق. So that is why you would use ضيق, because fa'il or fa'il is used, it's a pattern that is used to refer to something that is, or to refer to a person who holds an attribute permanently or for a very long time. But ضائق, a temporary state. So that is why the word ضائق was used here in Surah Hud, wallahu a'lam. على كل حال, inshallah, I hope that fa'il is clear, and this is the standard rule. And sometimes it might, sometimes the Arabs would go against it, but we cannot use these awzan according to our desires. Rather, we have to look in which af'al or for which verbs have the Arabs used some other pattern. Clear, inshallah, ya ikhwan? The easy part, is it clear, bi'idhnillah?
بإذن الله.
طيب, finally, alhamdulillah. Moving on to اسم المفعول. اسم المفعول. طيب, اسم المفعول يا إخوان is a noun, an ism that is used to refer to the object or the person or the thing upon which the fi'l was applied. So for example, if you apply the fi'l of حمل يحمل, that is to carry something or hold something, حمل يحمل, that object that was held and that was carried will be called mahmul, which is why the mobile phone is called al-hatif al-mahmul. Al-hatif al-mahmul. Hatif yani phone, and mahmul, that is carried. So mobile phone. Al-hatif al-mahmul. Mahmul, something that is carried. Nasara yansuru. Nasran fahuwa nasrun, and nusira yunsaru, the one who was aided, the one who was helped, will be called mansur. Khafada yakhfidu, to lower something. Khafada yakhfidu, to lower something. Just like we have it in Surah Al-Isra. وَاخْفِضْ لَهُمَا جَنَاحَ الذُّلِّ. And for the parents, you are supposed to lower your shoulders, lower your wings of humility for your parents. وَاخْفِضْ لَهُمَا جَنَاحَ الذُّلِّ. خَفَضَ يَخْفِضُ, to lower something. The thing that has been lowered will be called makhfood. Likewise, for example, you have fataha yaftahu. The thing that has been opened, what will it be called? The door that has been opened, for example. It will be called maftuh. A person who was beaten up, he will be called daraba yadribu, or that person who was beaten up, duriba yudrabu, fahuwa
مضروب.
مضروب. أحسنتم. Okay, something that you put on the table مثلا وضع يضع, وضع يضع, فهو مفعول موضوع. وضع يضع فهو واضع. The person who does it, who puts something, is called واضع, and the thing that has been put is وضع يوضع فهو موضوع. That thing is called موضوع on the pattern of مفعول. طيب, this is what we were, that's what was intended by these examples, that the ism al-maf'ul, the noun, the ism that refers to the object, comes on the pattern of maf'ul. What does it mean, maf'ul? That you will put the first root letter in the place of fa, the second root letter in the place of ain, and the third root letter in the place of lam. So we gave a lot of examples when we did the ism al-fa'il. So let's give you lots of examples for ism al-maf'ul as well. طيب, what is the ism al-maf'ul of jalasa? On the pattern of maf'ul. What is the ism al-maf'ul of jalasa? يجلس.
مجلوس.
مجلوس. طيب, what is the اسم المفعول of لا خلونا من ركيبة الآن. Let's just give examples of فعل يفعل يفعل يفعل. ضرب مثلا عرف يعرف, to know something. عرف يعرف. معروف. طيب, what is the اسم المفعول of, let's say, لحظة, 1 second, let me just get into a list of a lot of أفعال. نعم, مثلا, what is the اسم المفعول of دفع, to push something, دفع يدفع. دفع يدفع.
مدفوع.
مدفوع. طيب, to push something, or even it is used to for payment. دفع, he paid, because as if you push the money towards the person who you're paying to. طيب دفع يدفع this the اسم المفعول of دفع is مدفوع. Okay, what is the اسم المفعول of okay, what is the اسم المفعول of سأل يسأل؟
مسؤول.
مسؤول. أحسنتم. the اسم المفعول is مسؤول. What is the اسم المفعول of طرح يطرح to throw something away؟ طرح يطرح or to throw something, let's just say طرح. مدفوع. sorry for typos again. ما في مشكلة. طرح يطرح. طرح
مطروح.
مطروح. What is the اسم المفعول of ذبح يذبح؟ ذبح to slaughter. ذبح يذبح.
مذبوح.
مذبوح. What is the اسم المفعول of let's say خلط to mix something. خلط يخلط to mix something.
مخلوط.
مخلوط. What is the اسم المفعول of نقض ينقض؟ نقض ينقض. نقض is to يعني contradict or to refute something. نقض ينقض فهو or اسم المفعول of it is
منقوض.
منقوض. طيب what is the اسم المفعول of كتب؟ نعم منقوض exactly. نعم. what is اسم المفعول of كتب يكتب؟ كتب يكتب مكتوب. أحسنتم. what is the اسم المفعول of طيب بسط يبسط. بسط to expound on some topic or بسط just to make it vast and or spread it. بسط يبسط فهو مبسوط. أحسنتم. ده اسم المفعول is مبسوط. else the way you're supposed to say is بسط يبسط فهو مبسوط. Okay, what is the اسم المفعول of let's say جعل. جعل يجعل. جعل يجعل.
مجعول.
مجعول. what is the اسم المفعول of قطع يقطع؟
مقطوع.
مقطوع. what is the اسم المفعول of الله المستعان فصل يفصل. فصل يفصل مفصول. أحسنتم. what is the اسم المفعول of فصل لحظة of let's say هاي شباب give me some examples of أفعال. طيب حرم. حرم يحرم. حرم يحرم. what is the اسم المفعول of حرم يحرم؟
محروم.
محروم. طيب إذن this is clear الحمد لله. محروم is clear. now يا شباب this is the simple for any فعل that is صحيح on the pattern of مفعول. but if the فعل is أجوف let's say like سار يسير ساق يسوق قاد يقود باع يبيع, then what happens is that the asl is that مثلا دان يدين, the asl is that it should have been on the wazn of مثلا for قاد يقود it should have been مقفود مفعول مقفود. for ساق يسوق it should have been مسبوق. for سار يسير لحظة let me just bring back those نعم أفعال here لحظة. if you see here ساق يسوق لحظة ساق يسوق its root letters are seen واو and قاف, so the اسم المفعول should have been مسبوق, it should have been مسبوق. in باع يبيع the root letters are با يا عين, so it's اسم المفعول should have been مبيوع. in عاد يعود the root letters are عين واو دال, so it's اسم المفعول should have been معبود. إن عاد يعود معفوذ. كان يكون مكفون. مال يميل مميول. طيب مميول. But that is not the case. We find the اسم المفعول of مثلا قال يقود, instead of being مقفود it is مقود. Of ساق يسوق, instead of being مسفوق it is مسوق. Of سار يسير, instead of being مسيور it is مسير. Of باع يبيع, instead of being مبيوع it is مبيع. In عاد يعود, instead of being معبود it will be معود. In عاد يعود, instead of being معبود it will be معود. In مثلا مال يميل it will be مميل. باع يبيع مبيع. طيب, so there is something that went on here that was يعني different to the standard pattern of مفعول. So whenever the فعل is أجوف يا إخوان, what happens is the following. Let's just take مبيوع for example. باع يبيع. It should have been مبيوع, right? Now what happens is that you simply get rid of the واو. If the فعل is أجوف, you can simply get rid of the واو in اسم المفعول. The مفعول, you simply get rid of the واو. Okay? Now what are you left with? You're left with مبيوع. مبيوع. So what did they do? They said, okay, we cannot have مبيوع ضمن on the ya, or I don't know what exactly went on here, but المهم it ended up being مبيع. So if it has a ya as one of its root letters, it's going to be on the wazn of مفعل. مبيع. ها? مبيع. مسير. مميل. طيب. And if it has one of its root letter, or if it has its middle root letter as a waw, it will be on the wazn of مفعل. مفعل. طيب. So you'll be saying مقود. مسوق. Right? مكون. معوذ. معود. وهكذا. Is this inshallah clear يا إخوان? If the middle root letter is a ya, then مفعل. Then the wazn will be مفعل. مبيع. مسير. If the middle root letter is a waw, then the wazn will be مفعل. مسوق. مقود. Is this clear inshallah يا إخوان?
Inshallah.
طيب, I know it's a little difficult, but the most important information here يا إخوان is the standard pattern, that is مفعول. As for this one, inshallah, with time بإذن الله تعالى, you will be able to adjust to it. طيب, just for practice, let me give you a couple of examples. مثلا let's say قال يقيل. قال يقيل. What will be the اسم المفعول of قال يقيل?
مقيل.
مقيل. طيب, ممتاز. مثلا حال يحول. حال يحول. What will be the اسم مفعول of حال يحول?
محول.
محول. أحسنتم. Looks like it doesn't apply to Hamza. Can you please explain what exactly do you mean? يعني if the do you mean يا Kamal that if the middle letter is Hamza, if the middle root letter is Hamza, is that what you mean? If the middle root letter is Hamza يا أخي, then Hamza is not a حرف علة. It's not a حرف علة. It's not a حرف علة, and hence the فعل is not a فعل معتل. It's a فعل صحيح مهموز. That's why if it is سأل, you will say مسؤول. If it is قرأ, مقروء. If it is يعني زأر, مزؤور, وهكذا. So صحيح, it doesn't apply to Hamza because Hamza is not a حرف علة. It's not a واو letter. واضح يا أخي? Is that clear إن شاء الله? حال يحول محول. طيب, what else do we have? باع يبيع. صار يسير. جاء يجيء. طيب, if we have جاء يجيء, what is the اسم المفعول of جاء يجيء? the person to whom someone came. جاء يجيء. What is the اسم المفعول of جاء؟ مجيء. أحسنت. مجيء. مجيء. طيب what is the اسم المفعول of جال يجول؟ جال يجول. جال يجول to roam around. هاي شباب جال يجول. What will be the اسم المفعول of جال يجول؟
مجهول.
مجول. أحسنت. طيب ممتاز. إذن this is inshallah clear بإذن الله. Right? Okay, we have one. Yeah. خاف يخاف. يلا بسم الله. خاف يخاف. What is the اسم المفعول of خاف يخاف؟ طبعا first of all, what is the اسم الفاعل of خاف يخاف? A person who is scared. What will he be called? خاف يخاف فهو خائف. نعم with the همزة. خائف. خائف. This its middle root letter will be converted into a hamza. But what will be the اسم المفعول of خاف يخاف؟
مخوف.
أيوة مخوف. Why مخوف؟
بس كده.
لا ما احتاج بس كده. مخوف ما يجي.
Because
مخوف.
wow is the root letter.
Because wow is the root letter. Remember خاف يخاف, we are confused about the root letter. We look at the masdar, we say يعني this state of being scared or is called خوف. Fear is called خوف. So we know that the root letter is wow. That's why it's اسم المفعول will be مخوف instead of مخيف. Instead of مخيف it will be مخوف. طيب ممتاز. أخي نظير, is it clear now why it is not جال يجول's مفعول is not مجيل rather مجول? Because of wow. That's clear inshallah. صحيح؟ الحمد لله. طيب. Okay. And if the فعل is معتل اللام. What is معتل اللام? يعني it's ناقص. Then no problem. If it is ناقص, just merge the wow of مفعول into the third root letter, into the lam. Just merge it into the lam. So what happens is, for example, دعا يدعو. What is the اسم المفعول of دعا يدعو? We will say, instead of saying مدعو, we will say مدعو. Yeah, that is how it is. It will remain the way it is. مدعو. طيب. The only change comes when the third root letter, when the فعل is ناقص يائي, the third root letter is a ya. For example, in رمى يرمي and مشى يمشي, instead of saying يعني ممشوي, you will say ممشي, because the wow and ya, they are not compatible with each other. So you will مثلا رمى يرمي. Now the rule is that it should have been like this. مرموي. رمى يرمي مفعول is on the wazn of مرموي. But that is not how things happen. Rather, this wow is also converted into a ya, just to help us يعني pronounce it. So we'll say مرمي. رمى يرمي, the اسم المفعول of رمى يرمي is مرمي. طيب. So with the wow, the things remain the way they are, but with the ya, the things undergo some change, and that is that the wow in the maf'ul, this wow here, it becomes a ya with the ya. This also becomes a ya. And because now we have a couple of yas here, we will put, instead of a dhamma, we'll put a kasra here under the ain. طيب. Now let me give you some examples for this. مثلا مشى يمشي. What is the اسم المفعول of مشى يمشي? Will it be ممشوي or will it be ممشي? The اسم المفعول of مشى يمشي, ممشوي or ممشي? شباب, can you hear me? Number 2. Oh, طيب, جزاكم الله خير. طيب, what is the اسم المفعول of كوى يكوي؟ مكفوف or sorry, مكفوي or مكوي؟ مكوي. Now this is a difficult one. What is the اسم المفعول of رأى يرى؟ مرؤو, مرؤوي or مرئي؟
مرئي.
مرئي, أحسنتم, مرئي. What is the اسم المفعول of قضى يقضي؟ مقضوي or مقضي؟
مقضي.
مقضي. طيب, أحسنتم. خلاصة, the most important thing يا إخوان here is to learn that the اسم الفاعل comes on the pattern of فاعل, the اسم المفعول comes on the pattern of مفعول. Now these قواعد, if you are having difficulty with them, just keep them with you for reference. The thing is, what you will benefit from this today's lecture is that at least you have an idea of what goes on if the fi'l is naqis or it's ajwaf. So if you come across something like maqdiyun or mar'iyun, you wouldn't be confused. Oh, what is maqdiyun? Is it ism fa'il? Is it ism maf'ul? What sort of a pattern is this? You wouldn't be confused. You know that there is something weird that goes on with when the fi'l is ajwaf or naqis, when the fi'l is ajwaf or naqis. But the most important thing that you must remember from today's lecture is that the pattern for ism al-fa'il is fa'il, and for the doer you would use fa'il, and for the object you would use maf'ul. That is the most important thing so far. طيب. The masdar. What is the masdar? The verbal noun. طيب. Okay, if you allow us to have some more time, I can give you a couple of minutes break, inshallah, for you to just relax your mind a little and organize the information in your head. Inshallah, if you allow us to have a little bit of extra time, can we have 15 minutes, inshallah, until 9:15 for those who want to attend the live lecture? Can we have 15 extra minutes, inshallah? Akhi Fahmi Nasir, can we have another 15 minutes?
نعم إن شاء الله.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you. So let's have a couple of minute break, inshallah. 2 minutes break, and inshallah, so that you just relax a little, drink some water, inshallah, and then we'll stuff your mind with the masdar بإذن الله تعالى. طيب يلا. Couple minute break, inshallah. نعم. طيب نبدأ الآن. بسم الله. المصدر. وما أدراك ما المصدر؟ المصدر verbal noun. Masdar is verbal noun. Just like we have for stealing, we have stealing. Stealing is a bad habit. This act of stealing is bad. Like we have treatment. Treatment of diseases is something that is good. Treatment. Like verbal noun, masdar. Okay. Now, when it comes to the masadir for the verbs that belong to the families of fa'ala, what are the families of fa'ala? We have 3 families that have the madi on the wazn of fa'ala: nasara, daraba, and fataha. When it comes to the masdar, if the fi'l is muta'addi, what is the meaning of muta'addi, ya ikhwan? What is the meaning of muta'addi?
It requires a مفعول به.
Transitive. It needs a مفعول به. It makes a مفعول به منصوب. متعدي. If the fi'l is transitive, that is that the one that has a مفعول به, or that makes a مفعول به منصوب. Then the qiyas is, what is the meaning of qiyas? Standard rule. أحسنتم. Standard rule. This can be gone against. Sometimes the Arabs wouldn't use this masdar, but how do you learn when do the Arabs go against these standard rules? That is through the sama', by transmission of the usage of Arabs of different masadir for these verbs. But the standard rule is that if the fi'l is transitive and it belongs to the families of fa'ala, namely nasara, daraba, and fataha, then its masdar will be on the wazn of fa'al. Fa'al, yani the first root letter with the fatha, second root letter with the sukun, and the third letter depends on its i'rab, yani what harakat will have. So for example, nasara, yansuru, it's mutaaddi, nasran, and fataha, yaftahu, fathan, and daraba, yadribu, darban, and akala, ya'kulu, aklan, wa'ada, ya'idu, wa'dan. Yani the help itself is called nasr. The process of opening is called fath. Darb, the process of hitting someone is darb. The process of eating, or this eating itself, is called akl. The promise itself is called wa'd. The statement itself is called qawl. Qala yaqulu qawlan. The statement itself is called qawl. Ba'a, that is maqul. That's why it's called qawl. But qala yaqulu qawlan, yani the process of saying is called qawl. Ba'a yabi'u, the process of selling is called bay'an. Fa'lan, fa'al. Ba'a yabi'u bay'an. The process of selling is bay'. Khafa yakhafu. Khawfan. This act of fearing something or someone. Khawf. Madda yamuddu. Extending. Maddan. It's called mad. Madda yamuddu mad. Because now the previous, the first dal was sakin, so it was merged into the second one. Maddan. Radda yaruddu, to reject something or refuse it. Radda yaruddu raddan. But here something fishy or something weird took place when the fi'l was lafif, maqroon. Tawa yatwi, it should have been tawyan. It should have been tawyan. Tawa yatwi. Its root letters are ta, wa, lahza, ta, waw, and ya. So according to the rule, it should have been tawyan, but that's not what happened. Rather, the waw was converted into a ya and merged into the second ya, and we said tayyan, tay, double ya. That's why in the Quran Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says يَوْمَ نَطْوِي السَّمَاءَ كَطَيِّ السِّجِلِّ لِلْكُتُبِ. كَطَيِّ السِّجِلِّ. When we will fold the heavens like the books or the records, sijil, when the books are folded or closed. That is the way we will be folding the heavens. يَوْمَ نَطْوِي السَّمَاءَ كَطَيِّ السِّجِلِّ لِلْكُتُبِ. Like the folding of the books. Like the folding of the books. So it didn't say كَطَوْيِ السِّجِلِّ. لا, كَطَيِّ السِّجِلِّ لِلْكُتُبِ. It's at the end of Surah Al-Anbiya, Allahu A'lam. كذلك يا إخوان, in kawa yakwi, to iron your clothes, kawa yakwi, or to cauterize, because that also involves the process of cauterization involves heating the metal and then putting it on the wood. So this process is also called kawa yakwi. Kawa yakwi, it's according to the rule, it's masdar should have been kawyan, but that's not what happened. Rather, we had with the waw was converted into a ya, and we had kayyan. واضح إن شاء الله. طيب كوا يكوي كيان. As for مشى يمشي مشيا, وسار يسير مثلا سيرا, وعاد يعود عودا. But these are, even though these are lazim, مثلا let's just take some متعدي from the previous ones. خاف يخاف خوفا. If it is ناقص, مشى يمشي, جرى يجري جريا, مشى يمشي سرى يسري صري لا ما أدري سبحان الله I'm unable to recall any ناقص فعل right now سبحان الله. So على كل حال the rule remains intact for the ناقص فعل. It's only when the فعل is لفيف مقرون. You see واو and ya second and third root letters. Wow in ya in the second and third root letters, then it is it undergoes some sort of a change. Otherwise, the rule remains intact for most of the types of af'al. Who can remind me of what are the af'al that we had on the جرى يجري جريا كوى يكوي كيا لحظة دعا يدعو دعاء رمى يرمي رميا. طيب دعا يدعو it should have been دعوا but I don't know if they say دعوة. The Arabs say دعوة, they don't say دعوا, they say دعوة فاعلة. This would be considered as دعوة itself, but sometimes they say دعاء. Now دعا يدعو دعاء. What about دعاء? Now دعاء is, you will say about دعاء, you will not say it's قياسي, you will say it's سماعي. دعاء is سماعي. سماعي means this has been transmitted from the Arabs. We have known the Arabs using dua as the masdar of da'a yad'u. Otherwise, the standard rule says that it should have been da'a yad'u da'watan or da'wan مثلا, which is also one of the masadar. But when it comes to du'a'an, we say it's sama'i. Now, let me give you another example. Kataba yaktubu. According to the standard rule, what should the masdar of kataba yaktubu be? Kataba yaktubu. كتبا كتب يكتب كتبا. طيب this is one of the masadar. كتب يكتب كتبا. But there are another couple of masadar that have been used by the Arabs. كتب يكتب كتبا وكتابا وكتابة. As for كتابا كتابة, then there is another rule that will follow, but we could have said that this is sama'i. This is how we have known the Arabs to have used as masdar for kataba. The standard rule says it should have only be katban, and we heard the Arabs, it was transmitted to us from the Arabs that they also used kitaban as the masdar of kataba, So the process of writing is not just called katb, it is also called kitab, and it's also called kitabah. All right. طيب ساق يسوق. According to the rule, what is the masdar of ساق يسوق? ساق يسوق يا اخوان. What is the masdar of سوقا? Even though it's متعدي, it's متعدي, but even though it is ajwaf, it has a root, it has a vowel letter in the middle, but it does not. The principle remains intact. There is no change that the ساق يسوق underwent. طيب سار يسير, or let's say قاد يقود. The masdar of قاد يقود should be the masdar of قاد يقود should have been قودا. طيب, but I think as far as I know that قودا is not one of the masadar of قاد يقود. And this is where the rule has been broken. Rather we have قاد يقود. No, we have قاد يقود قودا. نعم في الصحة. قدت الفرس وغيره أقوده قودا ومقادة وقيدودة. Okay, ممتاز. So we do have قودا. نعم. So this the rule has remained intact. طيب ممتاز. لحظة. مثلا خلاص. This is okay. Now جرى يجري جريا بدأ يبدو رجا يرجو. Okay, now what is the masdar of raja yarju? According to the rule, it should have been the masdar of raja yarju should have been هيا شباب, according to the rule رجا يرجو متعدي على وزن فاعل. رج, it should have been رج1. It should have been رج1, صح? But the thing is that نعم. This is one of the مصادر. نعم. This is one of the مصادر. In لسان العرب it says رجاه يرجوه رجوا ورجاء ورجاوة ومرجاة ورجاة. Now, as for رجوا, it is according to the rule. The rest of the masadir mentioned in the dictionaries like raja, rajawa, marjah, rajatan, these are all sama'i. We found the Arabs using them, so we mentioned them in the dictionaries. But the standard rule was that it should be raja yarju, rajwan, fa'lan, nasara yansuru, nasran, fataha yaftahu, fathan, daraba yadribu, darban, akala yakulu, yakulu aklan. As long as the fi'l is muta'addi, its masdar would be on the wazn of فعل on the wazn of فعل. طيب. إلا ما دل على حرفة أو صناعة. However, if the masdar it indicates some sort of or it denotes some sort of a profession or a craft or an art, حرفة or صناعة. حرفة يعني profession or some sort of an art and craft, then it would be on the wazn of fi'ala. This is an extra piece of information. What is there for you to memorize is this. خلاص, just memorize this. That it will be on the wazn of fa'al if it is muta'addi. Just memorize this. These are extra bits of information that we are discussing for your fa'ida. If you remember, well and good. If you don't, ما في إشكال. طيب? So if the masdar denotes some sort of a profession or art or some sort of a craft, then it would be on the wazn of fi'ala. Like قرأ يقرأ, it should have been قرأً, but it's not قرأً as far as I know. It's قراءة only. قراءة, maybe there's something else as well, but we don't have قرأً. It should have been قرأً, right? Because it's متعدي. But since it is يعني referring to some sort of a work or some sort of an art or some sort of a profession مثلا, so we have قرأ يقرأ. لحظة خليني أتأكد. لحظة. قرأ يقرأ. قرأً, there is قرأً, سبحان الله. طيب, لسان العرب, this says there is قرأً. قرأ يقرأ قرأً, and we also have قراءة. قراءة. So قرأً is according to the standard rule, and قراءة because it, يعني they looked at it as some sort of a profession. طيب. كتب يكتب. Now, writing is also a profession, right? So, or it's some sort of an art. So they also use for writing كتابة. زرع يزرع. زراعة. زرع يزرع. زرعا وزراعة. So when the masdar is referring to some sort of a profession, which is in this case farming, then they will use fi'ala. They will use fi'ala when the masdar is being used to refer to some sort of a profession or some sort of an art. Then they will use the wazn fi'ala. زراعة, farming. But there is also زرع يزرع زرعا. It's also zar'an, but when it is being used to refer to the profession of farming, you'll say zira'ah. Najara yanjuru. Najara yanjuru. This is the job of a carpenter, right? Najara al-khashaba yanjuruhu. That he cuts the wood, right? And najara yanjuru, najran. And when you are referring to the profession, then you will say nijaratan. Najara yanjuru, nijaratan. That is why, and the carpenter is called najjar. Khata yakhitu. خاط يخيط, to stitch. خاط يخيط, to stitch. The profession, it should have been خاط يخيط خيطا, but when you refer to the profession itself, you say خياطة. خياطة. And حاك يحيك, it's similar to خاط يخيط. It's the same. It has the same meaning as خاط يخيط. طيب. So خلاصة is that if the فعل that belongs to the family of فاعل, that is nasara or fataha or daraba, and if it is muta'addi, it will be on the wazn of fa'al. It will be on the wazn of fa'al. Nasara nasran, fataha fathan, daraba darban. This is the easy summary of what you're supposed to remember. يعني لازم. Okay, and if the fi'l is lazim, now we had muta'addi and now we have lazim. What if the fi'l is lazim? What is the meaning of lazim? What is the meaning of lazim?
When it doesn't need a maf'ul.
Yeah, it's which is intransitive, then it is on the wazn of fu'ul. Fu'ul. Like jalasa yajlisu. جلسا ولا جلوسا؟
جلوسا.
سجد يسجد.
سجودا.
قعد يقعد.
قعودا.
طلع يطلع.
طلوعا.
ركع يركع.
ركوعا.
دخل يدخل.
دخولا.
وصل يصل. وصل يصل وصولا. مر يمر.
مرورا.
خرج يخرج.
خروجا.
نعم. So if it is lazim, take this as a general rule that it will be on the wazn of fu'ul. And if it is lazim, but it is ajwaf, then you go back to the first rule. That will be on the wazn of fa'al. So if it is muta'addi, fa'al. If it is lazim, fu'ul, except if it is ajwaf, then it will be still fa'al. Like mata yamutu mawtan, sama yasumu sawman, faza yafuzu fawzan, mala yamilu maylan. Extra bits of information. Ma alaykum. Aham shay, the most important piece of, or the most important things for you to learn in this chapter is muta'addi ala wazn fa'al, lazim will generally be on the wazn of fu'ul. But since I've written more information, I will just explain it to you. And that is that if the fi'l is lazim, but it is ajwaf, then its masdar will be on the wazn of fa'al. Like mata yamutu mawtan, sama yasumu sawman, faza yafuzu, to succeed, fawzan, mala yamilu, to incline towards something, maylan. And out of this lazim, there is another exception to the rule, and that is if the fi'l is it denotes particular meanings, like ittirab. Ittirab is rapid movement. Then it has some other wazn. It wouldn't be on the wazn. Its masdar would not be on the wazn of fu'ul. So, for example, مثلا غلا يغلي غليانا. غليانا. غليانا يعني boiling. But the process of boiling, because it has rapid movement in it, ittirab. So you'll say it will be on the wazn of fa'alan. كذلك مثلا طاف يطوف. طاف, to circle around something. طاف يطوف. There is movement in this. So they will say طاف يطوف طوفانا. Likewise جال يجول, to roam around. There is movement, rapid movement. جال يجول, they will say جولانا. دار يدور, again to circle, roam in circles. دار يدور, they will say دورانا. Okay. مال يميل, there is another wasn't for this, ميلان. So if there is rapid movement, they would have the masdar on the wazn of fa'alan. If it is referring to some sort of a disease, amrad, then they would have, they many times use the masdar on the wazn of fu'al, like zukam, or like su'al, cough, right? So this is how, or musha' مثلا. So they would use for amrad fu'al. For aswat, if the masdar is referring to some sort of sounds, for example, the sound of what sound does a dog make? The barking of a dog, or the sounds that is made by the horse, or the one that is made by the horse is called sahil. So it will be on the wazn of fa'il. Or for sounds, they also use the wazn of fu'al, like the one for the barking of the dog. They'd say nubah. And if someone is shouting, they say surakh or suyah, right? And مثلا the sound of a vessel, أزت القدر أزيزا, أزيز فعيل. كذلك زئير. And what else do we have from فعال? نباح and صياح or صراخ and خوار. The sound that is made by a cow is called خوار. طيب. If it is referring to some sort of any treading, then it will be on the wazn of fa'il, like ذمل ذميلا, سار سيرا. لا, this is not لا. ذمل ذميلا ودب دبيبا وهكذا. And if it is referring to some sort of refusal or some sort of escaping or running away from something, then it will be on the wazn of fi'al, like aba, iba'an, nafara, nifaran, farra, firaran, وهكذا. But these are not important. These are not important. بإذن الله ta'ala. What is important right now for you, ya ikhwan, is that if when it comes to fa'ala families are nasara, daraba, fataha. If the fi'l is muta'addi, its masdar, verbal noun, will be on the wazn of fa'al. Nasara nasran, fataha fathan, daraba darban. And if it is lazim, its verbal noun will be on the wazn of fu'ul. Sajada sujudan, raka'a ruku'an, tala'a tulu'an, jalasa julusan, wa hakadha. This is what you have to learn. طيب يا إخوان, inshallah. So is this clear? The simple bits of information, are they clear inshallah for you guys?
نعم شيخ إن شاء الله.
خلاص إذا نقف هنا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب